Breathe in, out, out. I will let you in, out, out. I will let out, out. I will let out, out. I will let in.
So the first card we're going to start off with is the Fool card. And I want you guys to just picture yourself in the card. And that way you can try to gain a sense of the atmosphere, gain a sense of the aesthetics, just the sense of being and existing in a space where you need to just trust yourself, trust your spirit guide. When we look at the beautiful picture up close, we see the planet Uranus in the background, Uranus being the planet of innovation, outward thinking, expansive ideas and thoughts. We see little beautiful butterflies here. Butterflies symbolize transformation, transition, going from a cocoon state into a flourishing state, like a blossoming feel to everything. You know what I'm saying? In the background, we also see the moon here. The moon represents our feelings, emotions, intuition, our inner hidden power. And take a look down here. Just take a look at where she's stepping off of. So we see this little cliff here. I created this so you guys can get a sense of stepping away from materialistic desires or stepping away from any earthly limitations. Zooming out, we see that our spirit guide is guiding us forward, is trying, almost pushing us off, as if to say that, hey, you need to trust in me, trust in yourself. And looking at the card closely, we see that her eyes are closed. That's having complete trust in where you're walking and where you're going. It's having faith and devotion in yourself and in spirit. See how she holds her power within, close to her chest. It radiates that trust in self. It glows. The love, the warmth you have to have for yourself in order to have that confidence to just push yourself forward. Not every day we get to wake up and be like, oh, let's just get on with our day. Like, a lot of times we have to just push ourselves and devote our time into bettering ourselves. So this card not only represents us having the ultimate trust, right? It's allowing us to disengage from our insecurities and just releasing any imposter syndromes. It's knowing our true purpose and walking with our head held high and just going with the flow of our energy. The Fool card is the first card of the tarot deck, which would be the number 0. So when we think of the number 0, we're thinking of endless possibilities or something that's circling around. When this card pops up in a tarot spread, we get a sense of, hey, we need to take a risk here. We need to just take a chance on ourselves, take a leap of faith. It can also come as a warning depending on the question. It can come as a warning. It can be a literal representation of you just being the actual fool, like you're being an idiot. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't take that next step because you're not looking where you're going. I chose specific colors for this card because I wanted you guys to feel the power with the golds, the yellows. I think it's vibrant, it's radiant. It's us having our glow up moment, but making sure that we are aware that we're just novices, right? We're amateurs. Everybody has to start from somewhere. And starting from somewhere takes a lot of faith. It takes a lot of confidence in where you're going. So you're not going to know all the answers to everything because, again, this is a starter card. But you're going to feel like you're ready to take on whatever is out there for you, even though you may not have the steps right in front of you. You see how she's stepping on almost like nothing? It's like a glow. It's it's your spirit guide's intentions for you. It's your spirit guide leading you in the direction that you need to go. So that's the Fool card, you guys. Nothing too complex here. It's just having faith in self and walking forward and just feeling your own power. The next card that we have is the Magician card. And again, try to picture yourself in the card. This card represents resources, creativity. When I created this card, I added all of the elements, as most tarot cards do that for the Magician. So we have the swords here, we have the pentacles and the wand over here, and we have this big ass chalice. Because you're taking on a big project. All right. In the background, we have Mercury, our spirit guide, and we have this divine being, and she's creating something with her hands. This card is predicting a phase of creation. Your spirit guide could also be saying to you that you're not using your tools to its full extent. You're not being efficient enough. This card is about being organized and just making sure our ducks are in a row. When we zoom in the beauty of this divine person, we see here that she has a third eye. So not only are we using our physical senses here, we have to use our spiritual senses. We have to use our third eye to kind of predict outcomes almost. Because when we are experimenting with different resources or different elements, right, we have to kind of guesstimate, hey, this may work or this may not work. It's all about the journey. It's not so much about the outcome. It's about experimenting and learning, developing our skills and talents as we go along. This being the very first card. So remember, the Fool is the first card of the tarot, but the Magician is labeled as number 1 because in major arcanas, there's 22 cards, starts from 0 to 21. As the first card, it's the card of self-development. So it's the card of self because number 1 is all about self or solo projects or solo efforts. This card is also a card of like deep isolation and more to just gain the clarity you need by yourself. This isn't a group project by any means. So when we see this card and we're talking about like career, maybe even love, this is all about self-development, like self-work, self-love, self-care, anything that has to do with self, and utilizing whatever you can afford or whatever is out there. You may already have those tools with you right now. And sometimes, most times, it's just you and your spirit guide. So really diving deep in yourself and focusing on things that will elevate you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. And when we see elements coming together, this is representing our mind, our heart, our soul, our physical being, just coming into one, coming into self, and just feeling aligned with one another. So when you see this card pop up in a tarot spread, that's really what that means. It's the card of self. The High Priestess. This card is all about psychic divine gifts or spiritual gifts. It's us awakening to our divine self. A more mature woman here. I don't want to say elderly because it's not really an elder. It's more of a mature woman who's gone through shit in her life. And she's gained the wisdom. You gain wisdom through experience and by aging. And age doesn't have to be physical. Aging can be mental, it can be emotional. We have different levels of maturity with our mental and emotional states, even spiritual states. It doesn't always have to be a physical meaning behind everything. And that's something that you guys are going to have to learn over time with tarot. It's not always physical. We see that she's holding the moon here. And the reason why she's holding the moon is because this card is attached to the luminary moon. Moon representing our deeper emotions or hidden feeling. This is the card of truth. And because it's the card of truth, we are learning the truth of a situation. So something hidden in the shadows will come to the light. And this is the time that having self-awareness is key to whatever resolution needs to happen. A lot of times we have people who neglect or dismiss what the truth is. And that's why we're seeing the spirit guide here opening up our third eye. This card is showing you, hey, there's a lot of red flags. Open up your eyes. It can also mean that you are being fake to yourself, or you're wearing a mask and you are choosing not to live your truth or speak your truth, right? It's going to require you to mature and to not be afraid to speak your truth. This card also represents somebody who is in tune with their spirit guide. A lot of times I've seen this card pop up when I have met another healer. So somebody who's either psychic, a spiritual medium, or has the gift of healing of any kind. So this is the card of the healer, the card of divine truth. The Empress card, one of my favorite cards. I mean, they're all kind of my favorite, so I might say that a lot. This card represents fertility and birth, and again, does not have to be physical. It can be mental, emotional, it can be financial. Regardless of what it is, this card is a representation of giving birth. It can be a literal thing where you're pregnant. It's also the mother card where it's mommy issues or having traumatic issues where you have to get to the root of a situation or past trauma just so you can grow and just so you can blossom the way that God intends you to blossom. We see here up close that she's covered in these vines and flowers, almost as if to say that she's being possessed by something, or not even possessed, but being held down, supported by the tree itself. So when we think of life, we think of all the different pathways in life, and this represents that. The tree grows upwards, but flowers, the leaves, the limbs of the tree, they grow however they need to grow. And that is a representation of how complex life is in general. So when we are trying to give birth to something, to a project, a person, it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of nurturement. It takes a lot of time and energy. And we have to pace ourselves and not try to rush the journey, not try to rush the outcome of anything, because it's going to grow however it's supposed to grow. And every time we talk about this card about being life, we also have to talk about death itself, because there is a lifetime value for everything. And I don't know if you know what I mean by that. Like, everybody, I don't want to sound morbid, but everybody has one thing in common, and that we are eventually going to disappear from this world. When we see the Empress card, it's making the most of our life, right? It's making the most of what we can and can't do. Learning to build foundations, not just for us, but for our families after us. So preparing ourselves, our legacies for people thereafter. When I made this, the roots, I wanted you guys to really look at it, because we need to have the discipline to root ourselves in something. We see the crystals here, which really represents like being hard as a rock, and not in a nasty way. Like, we need to be firm in where we stand and where we grow. So when you see this card come out, it's telling you to dive deep into your roots. If you have any rooted issues, you need to heal the roots so that you can blossom where you need to blossom, so that you can give birth where you need to give birth. The Emperor card, a magnificent masculine card. And you know what? I want to just say this, like, a lot of people have issues with masculine, feminine energy, but I don't. It's like light and dark energy, you know? There's different types of energies, and there's feminine and masculine energy. There's nothing wrong with that. And anybody can have masculine, feminine energy. Majority of us have both. When I made this card, I wanted to give this card big giant balls, not gonna lie. That's why you see Mars here in the middle in between his legs, because this is that courageous card to have. You know that saying, like, oh, you got balls. Like, yeah, you have courage. You're fearless. You know what I mean? I wanted to embody that in this card. You see all the fire, the lava, like this aggression almost, but it's a passive aggressiveness. It's not an intimidating kind of aggressiveness. It's just this dominant masculine energy that's resonating from his body towards you. Moving closer, we see the spirit guide feeding him this fire, this energy into his palm. So it's more of grasping power in our hands, right? It's being given to us because it's this great destiny that we may or may not have. But it's knowing that we have this power and using it wisely. It's not being reckless, which can be the reverse side of this card, right? Somebody's being very reckless, or somebody's throwing their weight around, or being a bully, or just being very aggressive or very controlling. But the positive side of this card, because it's an Aries card here, and we see the constellation, is that this is somebody who knows who they are, because the motto for Aries is I am. So this is somebody telling you who they are as a person, as an individual, and where they want to go, where they see themselves going. So when we see this card, it can point to a specific person, but it can also point to a situation where you need to gain control over something or someone. And not in a negative way where, oh, you need to be so controlling because things won't get done. It's having the sense of confidence to take a leadership position and help guide other people, not bully them into submission. But I just honestly love the look of this throne in general, like the way the heat just lights up the sides of it. This is the emperor surrounding itself, and not just in fire, but in this warm glow, right? So sometimes we lead people because we love them, and we have to have tough love. Sometimes we have to be firm. But this is being a role model to other people. You know what I mean? It's being a role model in a way where your actions speak louder than words. You are showing them through examples, through actions alone, that, hey, you can be a leader too. Or, hey, you can gain control of your life and just have the courage to pursue things that other people are afraid of. So I really love this card for that reason alone. Like, this is a powerful card to have on the table. But again, negatively, in the reverse side of things, it could mean that somebody is just straight up manhandling you. Because it's that masculine of a card, you know what I mean? And anybody can manhandle you or woman handle you, whatever you want to use. There, it's up to you. But if somebody is getting physical, this can be the card that shows that there may or may not be abuse. Like in a relationship spread, it can point to domestic abuse. It can also point to somebody who is even just verbally abusive. This is somebody who doesn't know how to handle their aggressions in a healthy way, so projects it onto others because there's just so much fire in there, they just don't know what to do with it. At the end of the day, that person or somebody else has to learn how to manage their greatness, how to manage their power, so that they're not overwhelming others with it, right? So that they're a guiding force for others to follow. The Hierophant card, which is the Taurus card in my deck. You can see the beautiful Taurus constellation in the background here, and also the beautiful spirit guide. When I created this card, I was inspired by the Valley of the Flowers in Tibet. So you see that in the background here. And when I think of flowers in bloom, or when I was looking at the pictures of the Valley of the Flowers, I was thinking to myself, look at all the beautiful colors and how everything is so vibrant and beautiful and just organic and natural. Like they just come together and do their thing. You know what I mean? Like the beauty of life itself. And life will continue to grow even though nobody's around to witness it. That's what I got when I was looking at videos and pictures of the Valley of the Flowers. I was also inspired by the monks that live there, the yaks that they ride on, just the whole feel of it. It's just so peaceful, so serene. That's what I wanted the Hierophant to feel like this peaceful, serene place where you receive this spiritual enlightenment like never before. And as the fifth card of the tarot, 5 being the number of challenges and difficulties, but ultimately tough transitions, this one is more of a peaceful transition. When we think of the zodiac sign Taurus being a fixed earth sign, we know that this is somebody who's more focused on one path instead of several different paths. So this card comes as a reminder to take the path less traveled, but also the path of least resistance. This card also symbolizes environment, being aware of our environment, and seeking places that give us peace. Sometimes we live in a space with others that is hectic and chaotic. So this comes as a reminder to step away from that. Maybe even going completely independent if you're financially capable, and just removing yourself altogether from anything that is toxic or anything that disrupts your peace of mind. This can come as a literal representation where somebody is completely nomadic, where they just cannot sit still, so they need to travel to a faraway place. I see this card more as the card of like solitude and just getting away from anything that isn't spiritual, anything that isn't meaningful, and just conserving your energy for something that is more long term, something that benefits you spiritually, energetically. The Hierophant card is more of a meaningful card, like finding purpose in our life by removing things that do not add to our value. It doesn't add to our true purpose in life. So it's this commitment to self and trying to figure out how can we be more at peace from within by having the right environment. On the negative side of things, this can, depending on the question, it could mean that somebody is extremely lazy, or somebody is very stubborn and does not want to leave a materialistic life, or they want to be superficial. They don't want to explore or have these kinds of adventures of the mind or spiritual enlightenment of any kind. They just do not care for it. And this type of behavior can restrict their growth or prevent them from becoming a better person overall. Because have you ever met a very superficial person? Who wants to be around them? But this is somebody who can also have like dogmatic views too, where they're just relentless with their ideas of life and living, and it just doesn't fit or vibe with anything or anybody. So if you see this card on the table, it can mean several different things, but generally speaking, this is the card finding spiritual enlightenment in a specific environment, making that transition, or having this difficult transformation where sometimes we feel claustrophobic or suffocated by other people. Therefore, we have to look within spiritually and try to find the peace or the good in a situation. The beautiful Lovers card. It's a Gemini card. That's why we see the Gemini constellation down below. When we look at this card up close, we see this union happening between two people. And the Lovers card is a very literal card, where this undeniable connection with somebody else, this unconditional love that two people can have between each other. But don't get it confused for twin flames. Please don't. I don't believe in twin flames. You can if you want to, but this card does not represent that. I don't want to hear anybody saying that. This card can predict two people meeting and two people falling in love, but it doesn't always have to be romantic. It can be platonic, it can be professional. It could just be a reunion of some kind between two distant relatives, two distant friends, or even long distance lovers. Regardless of what it is, it's a partnership of some kind. In a negative reversed card or reversed meaning, it can mean codependency in an unhealthy way. It could mean that love is not being reciprocated, where one is giving more than the other. It's not a balanced relationship. But really, there's other cards for that. So whenever we see this card, we always want to pull a clarity card next to it. And the reason being, it's because you can mistake the Lover's card for being true love in itself. But you should always pull a clarity card next to it just to make sure. Because if it's a more negative card next to it, that means the love between two people is more codependent and it's toxic and it's not a good relationship. If the card next to it is very positive, then this is a very loving and healthy relationship. You get what I'm saying? You see the spirit guide up here, where the spirit guide is blessing this union between two people, almost like it's karmic. It's fated to happen, whether it ends good or bad. There's this learning lesson between two people that needs to happen. And if we just keep scrolling down here, this energy that surrounds them both, this connection is undeniable. Even if it's a bad relationship between the two of them, there's still something to learn from it. There's still something that needs to happen between these two people. Your worst relationship is the one where you learn the most about a relationship, so that the next relationship that you have can be the opposite of that. And I don't really know where I got that from. I think I got that from my grandma. I don't think it's like a common phrase or anything, but that is my belief on what love is like. Like, you go through so many stages of love because it's so complex, and you need to learn, again, having that emotional maturity just to love somebody else. It's so difficult. And it's one of the top questions that all healers get from other people. Everybody wants to know about their love life. Everybody wants to know about love. So the Chariot card is a beautiful water card. It's the card of Cancer, the zodiac sign. So you see the constellation in the top, as well as the moon, because the moon is the ruling planet or ruling luminary of Cancer. We see these two gigantic seahorses here, and we see this divine being on a chariot. So when we see this card, we know that somebody is driven to push forward no matter what. And this is what that card represents. It's about aggressively following your true purpose without a second thought, right? You're moving forward unapologetically, like water. Water doesn't care where it goes. Water is water. It will flow wherever it needs to. With the Chariot card being a Cancer card, let's zoom in. This is somebody who understands their purpose already and will move mountains with all the pressure that they're going to apply to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like water beating on rocks. Eventually, it's just going to wear the rocks down, right? So with our spirit guide in the back over here, guiding us or encouraging us to move forward, it's letting us know that whatever emotional attachments that we may have, we need to pursue those passions without blocking our pathway, like getting in the way of ourselves, right? We don't want to get in the way of ourselves. We want to move forward no matter the cost, no matter what happens. So when you see the Chariot card on the table, this card is basically saying, F it. Don't try to talk yourself out of it. Don't try to make excuses. Just go with how you feel, and whatever happens, happens. Regardless, you're going to move forward. You're going to flow into the spaces where you need to flow. You don't need validation from anybody else other than yourself. So use your intuition, use your heart as a navigation, as you will, your GPS, and just move forward. I mean, easier said than done, right? It's easier said than done. In the reverse side of this card, this can be an emotionally draining card, like somebody is being very emotionally abusive, where they're just trampling over your feelings and no consideration how you feel whatsoever, right? So again, it depends on what the person is asking in a reading. This could be somebody who has no sympathy for anybody. It can point to a person who is always following their heart or wears their heart on their sleeve, you know what I mean? Where they're just kind of all over the place. This card encourages heart over mind, like, so feelings over everything else. And if somebody has a hard time expressing themselves, this is the card to have when you need to tell a client, like, hey, you need to open yourself up more. You need to go after things that excite you emotionally. And if you're stepping in the way of yourself, you are the problem. So that's what this card is. Aggressively pursuing something until your heart says enough. The royal, the magnificent strength card. This card is a regal, glowing, fiery lioness that have you quaking in your boots when you see it. If we zoom up here, this card is the Leo card. You see the little constellation up there? When I drew this card, it's almost similar to the Emperor card where I wanted to embody feminine empowerment, feminine energy, just like the Emperor is masculine energy. This is feminine energy. So we see here the line just right in front of her. When I made this card, I wanted people to feel the pussy power. You see that she's standing on the sun. The sun itself is the ruling luminary of Leo, and that's why it's there. The sun is all about empowering and lighting ourselves up, hyping ourselves up. This is somebody that embodies strength, so it's a literal meaning behind it, but somebody that uses their strengths to achieve worldly success. So when you see this card on the table, it can point to somebody who's either aware of all their skills and talents and is confident about who they are as a person, or it can be the opposite of that, where somebody is deeply insecure. Like they need to acknowledge that they have skills and talents that they can use to be successful in life. A lot of times it can mean we need to draw strength from our spirit guide. We need to trust that our spirit guide is pushing us into this great destiny or this great pathway. And if we're not strong enough to handle it, then we're going to crumble. This card can also mean fame in general, or being a celebrity of some kind. Having an audience that revolves around you like the sun, or like the planets do with the sun. So if somebody's asking about career, or somebody wanting to be, let's say, like an influencer, and this card comes out, it can predict that, hey, you're going to reach massive levels of fame of some kind, or recognition. If not fame, then it will be recognition of some kind. But whatever it is, you're going to be known for something. Your work, your personality, your strengths as a person. On the negative side, this can point to somebody that's completely delusional, self-entitled, and feels like the world owes them something for them doing absolutely nothing. It could be somebody who is playing the permanent victim, or they want to be the victim because it gives them that kind of attention that they feel they need to have to feel special. Again, it really just depends on the question being asked, or the person who's asking it. The reader has to have the strength to tell the client, you're not there yet. You still have to develop your strengths. You still have to acknowledge your strengths or work on your skills and talents so that you can be whoever you envision in your delusional ass head. But then a lot of times it's rare when you meet those kinds of people. But when you do meet somebody who has that star power, right, you'll most likely get this card. And when you do, just know you're sitting with somebody who's destined for something great in life. So letting them know, hey, you need to be strong, because when we see the strength card here, that person or you are going to be faced with challenges that only strong people deal with. Let's face it. Strong people deal with so much bullshit in life because they're strong. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's true. Like, God won't give you things that you can't handle. And when you can handle more, you get rewarded with more. It's crazy how that works, but it's the balance of life. And I won't go into more details than that. It just is what it is. The Hermit card. So this card is all about solitude, education. Anytime I see this card, it's always the card of like complete independence and isolation of some kind. If you get this in a love spread, then this card means that this person needs to be alone and shouldn't be with anybody. If you get this in a career spread, it's more about gaining higher education, that you need to learn something still. So if we zoom in here, we see that the Hermit is reading from the Book of Knowledge. So when I painted this card, it was all about the Book of Knowledge that we know and a lot of times in religion, right? I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, just want to put it out there. But I don't have anything against religion. I think having the book of knowledge in whatever capacity it is very helpful to the soul. Now, do we need to follow every book that's out there? No, we don't. Everybody writes their own novel in life. Everybody has their own experience in life, and everybody has their own book of life. So when we see the Hermit card, this is diving deep into your own personal records of who you are as a person and what is going to elevate you spiritually, mentally, emotionally. When this card comes out, it's like, hey, you need to be hyper focused in this, or you're never going to get anywhere in life. You're never going to elevate unless you take the time to be alone for a while and get to know you and get to know where you're from and get to know your culture and get to know everything that makes you you. That way, if you're looking for a fresh start in anything after you come out of your hibernation, you're going to be this completely different person. Sometimes this card can represent just living in present time and reading a book and having a moment to learn something new, learning a new skill, learning a new way to be more efficient in life, to be more cultured. When we look at the spirit guide in the background here, this is our spirit guide providing us with more knowledge, more focus, more commitment to our higher self. And what do I mean by higher self? A lot of people don't know what that means or what that entails. What it means is that we need to apply ourselves mentally and learn things that are outside of our comfort zone so that we as people can better understand the world in general, like the different communities, the different ways that people interact with one another, and accepting it for what it is instead of being closed-minded and ignorant. And to elevate to our higher self, we need to get educated. That's really what it means. Like, get educated. Stop being stupid. You know what I mean? Like, stop it. You know, stop being judgmental of the way other people do things. Everybody does things differently. Stop being closed off to the information being provided to you by your spirit guide. The Wheel card, which is the Jupiter card. When I see this card, I always think of greater fortune because that's what Jupiter is. It's the greater fortune planet. When I created this card, it was more about karma, the wheel of karma and luck and blessings. I wanted to really paint somebody who represented our angelic form, right? Our spiritual form. That's why you see these feathers, you see this beautiful white robe, almost like they're wings. This card to me is the manifestation of abundance, manifestation of something that gives us wealth. And it doesn't always have to be financial. It's just something that makes us feel rich inside or even externally, like money. When we look at this person here, they're reaching out to their spirit guide, looking for that guidance of some kind. But it's not really guidance. It's more of receiving blessings. You see how the hands almost touch each other? It's receiving blessings from one hand to another. The Wheel card is the karma card because everything will come back. Whether you do good, whether you do bad, everything will come back to you times 3. Our spirit guide offers us blessings, but at the same time, they can offer punishments because they watch us. They walk through life with us. They will reward and punish you at the same time if they need to. It really just depends on your situation or your deeds as a person. So when we see this card on the table, it can be a very lucky blessed card. In reverse, it's the opposite of that. Basically saying like, hey, your fortune's declining, you're headed towards some kind of bad luck, or you're going to receive some kind of karma, good or bad. Regardless of what it is, it's just saying that our luck and our fate are changing, and it's constantly changing. We're always going around and around, up and down. That's just the way life is. And if we want to turn the wheel of fate, we have to change ourselves, right? We have to change our actions, our deeds, so that we receive good karma and not bad karma. Just remember, your spirit guide is always watching you, always judging you, and just making sure that you are on the path towards good and not, I wouldn't say evil, but just bad all around. Like, we make bad decisions. We all make mistakes. We all make bad decisions. We always have consequences for anything that we do that's hurtful towards others, whether we know it consciously or subconsciously. The Justice card. When we see this card, we are seeing full commitment to something. We are seeing the scales like Libra, because the Libra constellation is in the corner here. We see the spirit guide judging or presiding over these two beings that are balancing one another. When I see this card, it can mean a literal sense of justice in the legal sense, where there's some kind of contract or obligation between two parties. A lot of times it predicts marriage between two people. The Justice card can also represent being fair to yourself, being fair to another person, or being the balancing act between two separate things, usually legal stuff, or between a business and your job. It's always a balance between what you love and what financially supports you. And if you look really closely, I put almost like a cherry blossom tree. I love cherry blossom trees. It's my favorite kind of tree, even though I'm highly allergic to pollen. And so this card is more of a fortune kind of card too, where it's predicting a commitment that's going to happen. And sometimes these commitments can be imprisonment if it's a negative reading, or a warning reading, or it's going to be a commitment like marriage or a long-term contract where it's going to provide for you financially. And sometimes the scales are not in anybody's favor, as in this is just not a commitment that anybody needs to be in because it doesn't balance anybody out, or the scale is tipping on more on one side, so it's more favorable for one person than the other. Again, really just depends on the question itself. You might pull this card too when you're doing a reading just to see what the future is like between two people. And this could be one of those things where they're either going to get married or they're going to be in court for money or for family, or having to coexist with each other in some kind of way where they have to co-parent, or maybe they're separated or they're about to get a divorce. If this card shows up next to the Tower card, it always means divorce. If this card shows up to a card like the Lovers, then this card means marriage. If this card shows up to a Pentacles card, then this is more of a business contract that somebody needs to fulfill. You get what I'm saying? So it's the balance between this card and another card that's going to be next to it. We always want to pull clarity cards on cards that need or require more insights, because not all cards are going to give you all the messages that you need. So just to recap, this is just a balancing act between two people, usually legal since it is the Justice card, or it can be more symbolic where a person has to be fair to themselves or give themselves a sense of justice by tipping the scales in their favor. So instead of being too generous or overly generous with your love or generous with your money, you have to rebalance it so that you can be aligned with yourself. So here we have the Hanged Woman. In traditional tarot, it's going to be the Hanged Man. I wanted it to be the Hanged Woman, so there's this sense of masculine and feminine energy. Here in the background, we can see the planet Neptune. So Neptune is the planet of illusions, but it's also the planet of spirituality, the planet of imagination. It can be a literal meaning where somebody has to hang tight. They have to hang on before a situation gains more clarity. It's basically letting go of everything that makes us feel insecure. Because if you ever imagine being on a roller coaster, you're falling and you get scared, you feel fear, and you're not in control of the situation, so you're just sitting there screaming, you know what I mean? You know you're going to be safe at the end of it because it's a ride. So when we see the Hanged Woman, it's almost like the same things, but instead of screaming your head off, you're just going with the flow of the motion. Like, all right, we're headed this way, let's go this way. And just trusting that our spirit guide is going to catch us when we're falling or if we fall. Similar to the Fool card where you're stepping forward and you're walking on air. This one is falling through space and time. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, there's not much to it, you guys. It's literally just hanging on. You're either hanging on for dear life or you're hanging on until something else comes your way, like another opportunity. But regardless of what it is, you will eventually land where you need to. If it's a negative reading, then you're going to go right through it and you're just free falling at that point. And there's nothing you can do about it. So this card is really just surrendering to circumstances. Like you're just completely surrendering. And it is what it is. Like you're just going to fall and you're going to fall peacefully, or you're going to fall and hurt yourself. But whatever happens, it happened for a reason. It can also mean that you're falling for an illusion, you're falling for something, and you're not being realistic, or you don't have the common sense to realize that falling for this situation or this person isn't beneficial to you. Or it can mean a positive thing, as in, hey, you should fall. You shouldn't worry where you land, because wherever you land, you're meant to be there. So again, it really just depends on the question. But this is a falling for or falling to type of card. Or hanging on to something or hanging out and waiting for something to happen. But regardless of what it means, you have no control over it. So we're looking at the Death card, and I like intensely love this card. This card is the Scorpio card. If we look closely, the Scorpio constellation is in the sky. I know it may be hard to see in the tarot card, so you're going to need a black light. This can predict death itself, as in there's a deceased loved one nearby, or you are experiencing some kind of death in the family. It can also mean death of self, as in an older version of yourself that needs to die. In a positive light, it can mean a rebirth of some kind, like you are going through an intense spiritual transition, as in a spiritual awakening. So you will revive yourself into somebody who's more elevated, somebody who's more woke, I guess. It can mean that a situation needs to die and that you have to let go, or that you have to grieve a situation, or that you need to take time to grieve so that you can heal emotionally. When I painted this card, I painted a black Pegasus right here. And this horse is a symbol of the Archangel Azrael. Azrael is one of my favorite spirit entities that I like to communicate with, because this is the angel of death. And if you look at the spirit guide here, you see how the wing flows into the back like this. It's really my representation of Archangel Azrael, or the angel of death. Because when the angel of death visits us, it's either to take us back to whatever you guys want to call it. Some people call it heaven, some people call it the hub like I do, some people call it home. Wherever your spirit is supposed to go, that spiritual entity will take you there. It's the same thing with the Death card. It's this intense transformation of self, either mentally, emotionally, spiritually. This card is more about grieving. It's grieving any losses that you may have in this lifetime. It could be grieving a past version of yourself, as in like you're healing from past trauma. So you're grieving that little girl or boy, and you're hugging and comforting that part of yourself so that you are giving birth to a better version of yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going through a rebirth. So a lot of people like to fear this card when it comes out, but I just feel like there's nothing to fear. And even though it can predict certain events that may happen, this card usually pops out Well, for me, and when I had clients, it would always come out when a deceased loved one was nearby or in the room or wanting to pass a message along. The Temperance card is guided by the zodiac Sagittarius, which I am the cusp of Sagittarius and Scorpio. Ayy. So we see the constellation in the sky over here. We see the union between the moon and the sun. So if you know anything about Sagittarius, you know that it's a dual zodiac sign because of it being half human, half centaur. So just like the moon and the sun, it's this duality. When I made this card, I thought of mostly horizon and distance and travel. That is something Sagittarians are known for. We see the spirit guide pointing to the distance here. And it's encouraging our rider here to ride into the distance, to go as far as they need to. So it's the union of personal experience and spiritual experience. And really just getting to know the world from your own perspective. And also grasping things that were never within your reach before. It's really detailing like a journey of the mind and the heart and the spirit, like a moral story of some kind, right? Like you're gonna learn something if you go on this journey. And there's always something to gain because you are the main character of your story. So as we move along in our journey and we go the distance, we will come across multiple challenges and obstacles of which we will need to pull from our personal and spiritual knowledge, coming up with little philosophies of life as we go along. We gain a sense of resilience and determination to see things through. So, seeing this card on the table can mean a variety of different things, as in taking the journey with someone, traveling to a distant place, going the distance with your career, traveling within the mind, the spirit, wherever you want to go, whatever distance you want to go with yourself, this is the card that represents that. This is also the card of instincts, like basic instincts of survival and taking a risk, not like the Fool card where you're taking a leap of faith, but this is more of like gambling on where you're going to end up in life. So if we just look at the rider here, and we know she's on a horse. And what do horses symbolize? Horses symbolize some sort of strength, right? They have leg strength, meaning they're meant to carry certain people like burdens. It's a symbolic thing. Or they have the muscle strength to go as far as they need to go. So it's this free-spirited energy and allowing ourselves to go where spirit is pointing. And if we see the golden fields here, that was intentional. When we see the golden fields, I think of like the golden fields of opportunity, the golden fields of wealth and riches and just success in general. And then we move up and it's this transition into the moon. So day or night, your spirit will travel either through the earth realm or through the spiritual realm. It's really up to you, or you could do both simultaneously because there's such a thing as multitasking, people. The seductive devil card. All right. So when I see this card is pure seduction and temptation. It is the Capricorn card. As you could see, the Capricorn constellation is in the top in the sky right there. We see our beautiful spirit guide overlooking this toxic relationship. But when we think of Capricorn, we're thinking of a cardinal earth sign. So we're thinking of materialistic values. We're also thinking of people or success as a ways to gain some kind of status in life. So this can symbolize or represent somebody who loves status, who needs recognition, who wants to be chained down by material gain and superficial values. See how he's chained to this dry desert, this dry, deserted land. It's cracked because the foundation that he kneels on is not really a solid foundation to grow from. The devil card doesn't necessarily mean that this person is the devil. It could just be devilish temptations or wanting things that will chain you down and weigh you down so that you can't stand up on your own. Like you become codependent. It can even point to a codependent relationship or a parasite kind of relationship where one is just feeding off of another person. If you look closely, you'll see that this person has the key chained around their neck, but is too seduced by this person to want to be free. So this is like unchaining yourself, but you don't want to. You want to live in this little bubble, that seductive bubble that you have going on. You want to live in ignorance, like the saying goes, ignorance is bliss. If it points to a relationship, it can point to one that is very sexual and that's all that it is, or one that is superficial. So one person just is using the other person in some kind of capacity where they need them for clout, they need them for financial gain, they need them to survive, but not survive in a good way where somebody's providing for a family. It's more of like feeling entitled to their hard-earned money, or feeling entitled to whatever they have or whatever they possess. Looking at this card zoomed out, though, as beautiful as it is, notice how it's black and white. So this is a person who sees things in black and white and is only seeing the gold, right? So it's only seeing the superficial wealth or wanting only material possessions that bring them value as a person. So they feel like they're somebody or somebody of importance when they have quality items or things that they can flash, things that they can show to others that represent their status in society. When this card is in reverse, though, this is a card that symbolizes the opposite of that, where somebody is unhinged. It's still a little negative, but it's opposite, whereas this person unhinged, but this person is unchained and they're not bound to society's expectations. So they're going to free themselves from whatever their definition of that is. They're still on shaky grounds and they're still trying to free themselves from something. So it could be that they have to rebuild from something that's been demolished or something that's been torn away from them. And so starting over is the only solution for their problems, or releasing themselves from things or people that are weighing them down. And sometimes we allow people to be in our lives and not knowing that they are hiding behind a mask and they have ulterior motives. And this can relate to anybody in your life. It could be work, it could be at home, it could be friends or family. It really just depends on the question being asked. When people see the Tower card, they immediately get scared, because anytime the Tower card appears, it's the breakdown of something. But positively speaking, it can mean the breakthrough of something or someone, or reaching a breaking point that can be positive rather than negative. As we zoom into this card, we see a warrior or a knight taking command of a situation, and we see these catapults launching these fireballs at the tower to make space to break it down. So this can have a symbolic or metaphorical meaning where somebody needs to do that in order to clear space mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, so that they can create a more healthy and serene space for themselves versus something that's chaotic or hectic. We see Mars in the background here because Tower is related to the planet Mars. So Mars is of aggression and physical dominance of some kind. And exploring this card, we see that the spirit guide is in full support of that. And if we look at the warrior over here, this is somebody who's feeling confident and courageous enough to want to clear space or want to remove this blockage. So the Tower card itself represents obstacles in our lives that challenge us to grow as a person. The reversed meaning of this card is really no different. And a lot of times this leads to some kind of mental, emotional, physical, or even spiritual breakdown. It can also represent, and I've seen this a couple of times in my readings, that somebody is physically ill, like they're gonna be sick. Part of their body is gonna break down. And so they need to rest, they need to relax, they need to take it easy on themselves. This can be a prevention card. Spirit is letting you know, hey, this breakdown is gonna happen, so you need to not move forward and you need to chill out for some time. But a lot of times people don't see that in the Tower, you know? People see the Tower and they immediately think like, "Oh, it's the worst possible message ever." It's not the worst possible message ever. It is a strong warning card, but it's not a card that's like, "Oh, it's the end of the world." It just means something's going to get cleared out or something is blocking you. And so you need to clear it out or you're going to have a breakdown if you don't take it easy on yourself. The beautiful star card. I love this card so much. I mean, I love all my cards, but yeah, you guys already know that by now. When we see the star card, we are looking at the Aquarius cards. As you can see, the Aquarius constellation is in the top over here. We see the spirit guide holding and lifting the star up, as well as this divine being, this divine person doing the same, almost as if they're praying or praising or even worshiping the star almost. So for the star card, it's more of navigation, as in you're moving in the right direction. It can be a literal meaning where you are the star in in a certain situation, or it can mean that you were born to be a star. So you need to shine and stop dimming yourself to make other people feel comfortable. Moving in a direction that pleases ourselves. Like it pleases us in a way where we're not following the direction of society's expectations. We are following the star that shines on us. You know what I mean? Like we are shining because it is who we are as a person. Like we know ourselves. So this card kind of allows us to feel and recognize what we bring to the world. And this in turn will help other people navigate their own lives. Seeing you shine on is an inspiration for others. Your journey is not always going to be void of any light. It's going to have some type of North Star to help guide you through. We are turning to our spirit guide to help lead us and to help guide us forward. And anytime we look up at the sky, we see the stars, it seems almost endless. So think of this as like endless opportunities or no limitations in where your star could shine. It could star in some void that nobody else knows about. It can shine on in the darkest of places. You won't know until you discover what makes you shine brightly, really. So this card makes us feel some type of worth or value, and it's the card of hope and reassurance. So if you're feeling any kind of fear or you're in darkness of some kind, this card comes up when our spirit guide is telling us there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You don't need to look very far, it's coming. And in a reversed meaning, it can mean that you need to find yourself or that you've lost some kind of direction. You are not following your true path. You're not following your calling, or that you're being blinded by the stars, meaning your ego is getting in the way of your own progress, your own success. You may have to redirect just to regain focus. But it's also just having that confidence, knowing that whatever path lies ahead, you know that you are going the right way. And if you don't know, then this is the card reminding you that you need to figure it the fuck out. That's really what that means. The moon card. So the moon card is a Pisces card. As you can see, the constellation at the very top, the beautiful moon in the middle, just highlighting everything. And then we see this beautiful, mysterious mermaid looking at her reflection in the water. And we see this visible shark and our spirit guide letting us know, hey, something is in the water over there, but you are not paying attention. And in this card, we see that she's very focused on what's in front of her, her reflection. So this can be taken as the card of reflection or self-reflection. And when our spirit guide is showing us the shark here, this is what's in the dark that's coming to light. We're floating in a dreamlike state, and that we are not acknowledging the reality of a situation. Now, the shark here can mean a good or a bad thing, because sharks don't always bite people, right? We should all know that. Not all sharks bite people, but this shark we would have to be concerned about because it's lurking within the shadows. So it could come up and bite her if she's not careful. We may be obsessed with what's over here, but it's not reality. The reality is out here. And our spirit guide is trying to tell us that, like, hey, look over here. But we're too obsessed with this fantasy. But overall, this card is more about self-reflection and self-expression and really just using our intuition as needed and being adaptable to our environments and making sure that our feelers are always on, right? We're always gaining a sense of where we're at, what we're doing, and so on and so forth. The Radiant Sun card. So when we see the sun card like this, I mean, do I have to say it's about the sun? I don't think so. When we talk about the sun, we're talking about warmth. We're talking about glow, like a glow up, right? We're talking about radiating energy and positive energy. It just feels good, and that's what I wanted to portray in this card. So when you look closely, you see that she's made out of marble or stone, and she's coming to life at the touch of her spirit guide. This card also has butterflies to show, again, transformation, transition from one to another, from a cocoon state, right? She's coming alive. We have the little rabbit here, and the rabbit symbolizing some type of fertility, because, rabbits multiply. So it's this fast growth, and we see these white roses that represent beauty and strength. So it's the blossoming of life itself. But we also see that she's holding some kind of harp too. So when I made this card, I wanted to also symbolize the beauty of music or art or some kind of skill that or talent that we all may have, right? We all possess some kind of skill or talent that is either unique to us or similar to someone else. It doesn't matter. Like you have something that you are passionate about, that's something that brings you life in general. So when we see this card on the table, it could represent that, as in you need to go back to what gives you life, what makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside, what makes you feel beautiful inside and out. And that can point to anything really, because it just depends on the person. But looking at this card in general, we see the sun shining through, almost the same as this person is breaking through the stone. So we're having some kind of breakthrough, right? Almost like the Tower, but this is a very positive card. It's the empowerment of someone else, or the empowerment of ourselves, and just coming into our own. Like we're having a breakthrough with self. And this is the card of like confirmation and just taking pride in all of our achievements, that we're there, like everything revolves around us, because the sun, the planets revolve around the sun. When this card is in reverse, so reverse negative, it represents some type of ego or vanity, some kind of arrogance, like you're better than everybody else when you're not. It can also point to some type of selfishness or greed, or wanting to hog the sunlight or wanting to hog the spotlight. It can also mean that you're stonewalling your own talents, like you're in the way of shining. You're in the way of sharing your gifts with the world. And even if you didn't want to share it with the world, you should at least share it with yourself. People never know what it's like to shine in their own right because they never try. So when we see this card, it is encouragement from our spirit guide to try our best. And that's always going to be good enough for you and for anybody else that cares. And for those that don't care, well, you know what? They can, go somewhere where the sun don't shine. Seeing this card, we have to strive beyond our comfort zone, or else we're going to be imprisoned in this stony hell, feeling like we're not good enough to achieve anything that we like to do or pursue anything that we want to do. Always try, always give your best, and you will see that the sun will shine on you one day. That's what this card means. The Judgment card is the Pluto card. So if we zoom in, we're going to see Pluto in the background over here. Pluto is the planet of karmic retribution for me, so karmic judgment. If we scroll down, we're going to see the spirit guide here almost taking this soul. So when I made this card, I wanted to also put this little knife here. So in Japanese culture, if you guys want to look it up on your own, there's such a thing as doing an unaliving yourself for honor and respect for either yourself or your family. And I wanted to capture that in this card where the fate has already been sealed, like a decision has already been made, life or death situation. So when you see this card on the table, it represents that. Like, this has already been set in motion. There is nothing anybody can do. You can't do anything to change the fate at hand. This is complete surrenderance to the highest entity, to the highest power, and being okay with it. And if you're asking about a situation and you want to know the judgment of something, it means the same thing. Like, it's already set in motion. You have no control over it. Notice how this soul is already being sucked away. It's kind of like, okay, you're done. You know what I mean? You're done. The Judgment card is the card of surrendering control and living with your own consequences, or living with whatever God or the Creator has set up for you. It is what it is at that point. Versus the Hanged Woman, it was kind of like, hang in there, something else is gonna come in and probably save your ass. Nothing's gonna save you from whatever's fated for you. And I know it's a little bit morbid, people might be scared of this card, but that's really what it means. There's no other explanation. And you could take this time, if we're talking about phases of time, you could take this time to do some deep healing, or to learn how to accept situations as they come. And even in a reversed meaning, it's very similar still. It's still surrendering to the highest power and just letting go of your ego, or letting go of whatever it is that you can't hold on to. And you shouldn't hold on to, because you can't. It's just gonna go away. It's gonna float away. If this card comes up in a relationship spread and it is a negative, meaning that this person is gonna float away from you. You can't hold on to this person. It is what it is. So the best thing a person can do is to have faith, and knowing that our spirit is gonna be called to wherever it needs to be called to. The World card is the God card in my tarot deck. It could be God, Goddess, the Creator. And that's why I created and painted it this way. Because there's no gender, you know what I mean? Like, God to me is everything in the universe. God is the universe. And I'm not going to preach to you, so don't worry. I'm just letting you know. So the Saturn planet is here. So when we talk about Saturn, we're talking about the planet of restriction. We're talking about the planet of boundaries and rings and opportunities. It symbolizes higher power, an intervention in some kind of way where God is intervening. And so this is more of a card of confirmation that we're on the right path. But it's not like the star card where it's like, okay, you're going in the right direction. When we get this card, and this card being the very last card in the major arcanas, we're seeing the ultimate success. Like it's the ultimate creation. Like you've reached the end of something and you've reached the highest level of achievement. But in a negative way, it can create a lot of pressure in our lives where we feel like we have to be godlike. And we are human, so we have to accept that we're just human, and doing our best is all that we can do. And it's reassurance that we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves, that we need to alleviate any pressure or stress and not cause them by overthinking a situation or feeling like we're not doing enough when we've done all that we could. It's also a phase of evolution for some of us, because all cards to me come in full circle. So after the World card, it goes back to the number 0, which is the Fool card. This is the completion of something where you have to start over and start learning something else new sometimes. I also see this card as the card of ultimate gratitude, praise, and worship. Sometimes we need to just sit down and acknowledge our spirit guides, acknowledge the higher entities, the spiritual entities that are helping us and leading us where we need to be. So always take the time to do that. I do that every night, almost every night. I won't say every night, but almost every night. I try to make it a point to practice gratitude, and it helps me stay grounded. It helps me feel connected with my spirit guide. And my spirit guide is Archangel Gabriel. Your spirit guide can be the same or somebody else. You know what I mean? It really just depends on you as an individual. But after I made this God card, I felt such a sense of relief making it. It was a struggle, you guys. It was a struggle. I think I redid this card so many times. And I can't remember how many times I've redone it. But after I was done and I looked at it, I was like, this is perfection in every way, even though it's not perfect. And you could tell by all the lines and everything, they're not straight, they're complex. They're just a little bit everywhere. Just like the universe is, it's not all straightforward. Nothing is ever straightforward. We would like it to be, but it's not. All the stars in the sky, they're not all lined up in rows or anything. They're speckled everywhere. And we just need to take the time to appreciate our life in general, even though it can be complex, even though it's challenging, even though it may not feel like you're progressing anywhere. When you see this card on the table, it is the creator letting you know, hey, you are where you're at because of you and everything that you've accomplished in life. And it's okay to start over and to elevate yourself. And it's okay that you're going through this because you're going to see the light. Like see and feel the light, the warmth of the creator, and the warmth of your spirit guides. You know what I mean? And it's going both ways, this reciprocation between spirit and human. So with that being said, this is the last major arcana in the deck. And this is the card of mastering a life cycle and just being ready to evolve past yourself. That's really what it means. A new world that you can explore whenever you're ready.